My husband's like a walk in a minefield trying to provide things for me.
Blame it on some PhD somewhere.
Right, exactly. Support the oligarchs. Support the oligarchs.
You're never going to be perfectly happy all the time. The best you can hope for is to be reasonably happy. Reasonably happy. Most of the time.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Reasonably Happy. I am your host, Paul Ollinger. Today I am joined by author and relationship expert Carolyn Sharp. She has written a book called Fire It Up, 4 Secrets to Reigniting Intimacy and Joy in Your Relationship. And Carolyn, my children seeing this book on our dining room table made them very nervous. Made them
traumatized.
Think, what kind of firing up are you and mom up to these days?
Well, that's, the secondary goal of that book is to create future clients for me as a therapist. So I'm hoping to traumatize lots of youth into seeing their parents try and create a healthy relationship.
One other thing we have to get out there, Carolyn, is also Rhodes College, class of 92.
Correct.
Okay.
90,
I thought
91.
I'm 91. I thought we were classmates.
No.
No.
I'm a year.
Okay.
Younger. I'm just as wise as you.
Yes. More so.
Yes.
I'd say more so.
Yes.
And you were definitely wiser when we were both 21 and 22. Anyway, we're going to start how we normally start. I'm going to ask you, Carolyn, where do you find yourself the happiest?
In connection with other people, honestly. When I'm like with friends.
Dang, you're good at this.
I know, fuck. Or in like a really great moment, and by great I don't mean happy, blissful, but a moment reasonably. Such a great title. That should have been the title of my book, really, is Reasonably Happy, but I don't think people would have picked that up as a relationship manual. Anyway.
Hang on one second. Mike, is her mic good?
Am I talking directly enough into the mic?
That's what I'm wondering.
Okay.
Maybe just keep it more directional.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Keep going.
Okay. So a really juicy moment, juicy discussion, fiery discussion with someone, even someone I don't agree with, if we're in connection and we're really listening to each other and enjoying what we're learning from the conversation, that's when I'm at my happiest.
Do you think that's because you're not thinking about yourself in that moment, that you're just your brain, you're not maybe in, what do they call it, flow state, but you're in unconscious connection with the world as opposed to being self-ruminatory and overthinking?
Maybe. I mean, I think that when we're too in our ego, in our conscious mind and using that part of our brain, we're not in that flow state. So maybe, yeah. And I think that my flow state is in connection, is in relationships with others. Hence my profession.
So when you tell somebody else what you do, when you're inevitably asked at a cocktail party, what you do, how do you answer that question?
Depends on the cocktail party and whether I want to make people uncomfortable,
All right.
or engage. But usually I'm a relationship expert. I help people have healthier relationships. Is sort of the...
When you say, did you have trouble calling yourself a relationship expert until a certain point? Like, how did you earn the trust in yourself to give yourself that moniker?
I mean, I think I was a social worker first, and then I was a therapist. And then over time, when I moved into not only doing therapy with couples, but also providing coaching, classes, and retreats, that's when I moved into using sort of a bigger, more vague, really, term, like an umbrella term for myself of I know all facets of relationship, and I can teach anybody how to be in relationship. And that book is really geared toward couples, certainly.
This book, Fire It Up.
That book.
Available on
right
Amazon
there.
And all kinds of good stores.
All kinds of good stores. Bookshop.org if you want to get away from the big stores.
Sure.
Anyway, while that's geared toward couples, all the lessons learned there apply to all relationships. So I'm really trying to get to people where they're motivated, which is their primary committed relationship, but hoping it spreads to their relationship with their kids, their parents, their colleagues, all of that stuff. Their neighbors, politicians.
Politicians?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, as I'm reading the book, I didn't read 100% of it, but I spent a couple hours with your work. I found myself finding similarities between what you do and what I do. As a comedian, I tell jokes about my wife on stage. The jokes are really about me
Yes.
through her eyes.
Yes.
Or as I feel seen or watched or observed or judged through her eyes. And you share the lessons about relationships through the lens of your marriage to
Correct.
Jeff, your
Yes.
husband.
Yes.
He's your husband,
Yes.
your partner,
Yes.
your go-to guy.
Yes.
Okay.
Love of my life, best friend.
And you also share context of how your childhood informs your practice. So give me a little background on all that.
Well, so I grew up, 45 minutes north of Manhattan, Westchester County, and grew up upper middle class or above that even, not needing anything, in terms of material goods or anything. But my mother was an alcoholic and had mental health issues. And my dad was here in the city earning money for his family.
He was a Wall Street guy?
He was basically a banker, not Wall Street, but, he was Midtown, Manhattan, Citibank.
Yeah.
And so our family from the outside looked healthy and normal, but on the inside, there was not a lot of care and attention. And I'm also like full-on WASP, who, everything has to look nice on the outside. We don't share our dirty laundry. We don't talk about emotions. We keep everything nice and pleasant, good Anglican background. And so there was a lot of chaos going on and not a lot of care to the emotional impact of my mother's drinking or her, mental health issues.
And how did that manifest?
How did
Her
it?
mental health and alcoholism.
Well, I mean, she went by the time, and both my siblings went to boarding school. So by the time I was like 9 or 10, both my siblings were gone. So I was home alone. With my mom. My dad wouldn't get home until 7:30 at night. And I would come down the long driveway and didn't know, oftentimes would find my mother passed out on the floor of the kitchen. And then I'm there as a 9, 10-year-old by myself in a house.
Wow.
Until it got dark.
Jesus.
And my dad came home. Yeah.
And what would there be, just sort of a silent recognition in your dad's eyes about what the situation was, or you didn't talk about it?
He would immediately put his briefcase down and said, "You want to play ping pong?" And we would go down in the basement and play ping pong. So sweet.
Goddamn.
Right? But like there's no discussion of, oh, this must be scary for you.
Right.
But he also wouldn't have gotten that from his family. He did not have parents that were like, picking him up and holding him or any of that sort of stuff. So he didn't have any idea what to do with his kid or even with his wife. He knew, you stay married forever, and you just make a life. You just
suck it up.
You suck it up.
Stay married or you jump in front of a train.
And there's
like
really,
a good husband does.
Good husband does. And there's some value to that. I mean, I appreciate that lesson to an extent because now we've like swung all the way to the other end where people give up relationships so quickly. Things get hard.
Conscious uncoupling, is that what Gwyneth called it?
Right. Gwyneth called it. Well, she's naming it after a book that was written about conscious uncoupling. Okay. But
it's always good when you can make a decision and then blame it on some PhD somewhere.
Right. Exactly. But I think people are too quick to give up on their relationship. So there was some value in my parents just sort of like, we're married and we will always be married. We will stick through it. So, they didn't necessarily have the healthiest relationship nor model the healthiest relationships, which is why I don't think it's a terrible thing for your son to see, oh, mom and dad work on their relationship. That's a good lesson because relationships are fucking hard and annoying and difficult.
And so you wanted to do what for your clients or patients that served a need that wasn't met for you?
Well, I initially went into social work to serve kids because having gone through what I went through, and then, I went to boarding school and I was horribly bullied. I had no friends and I was sort of hazed throughout high school.
Why?
Living there. I don't know. I mean, when I got there, my mother had just quit drinking, like 9 months before, and I was a little bit in shell shock of sort of this reckoning that had happened in my family. And again, there was not a lot of care to, my mom was like, the sober superhero. She was like, I'm good now. We're good now. And yet there was no real acknowledgement of is Carolyn good? Is Ruth good? Is Andy good? Are my siblings good? It was just like, now we're all a happy family. And so I was a little shell-shocked when I got to high school. And so I was a little meek and a little quiet. And I think I was the prey for the, predatory behavior of the New England prep school.
All girls or co-ed?
Oh, no, it was co-ed. Curtis Sittenfeld wrote a book. I don't know if you know the book Prep. She went to Groton, and it's based on her experience at Groton. Anyway, it's a good book. It was a little...
Isn't that a movie with Andrew McCarthy and Rob...
Did it get made into a movie?
Rob Lowe?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway...
So you wanted to help kids?
I wanted to help kids. I wanted to provide for what I knew kids needed based on what I hadn't gotten. And so I worked in foster care with the most abused and traumatized, like worlds beyond anything I experienced, because I was not abused. There was neglect, but I was not,
yeah.
I was just sort of like left to my own devices. And so I developed like serious independence. Like, I don't need anything. I can take care of myself. Don't worry about me. I'm over here. I'm fine. And for a lot of my relationships, I ended up attracting people that needed a lot from me. And I was like the superhero taking care of everybody in order to try and be worthy of love. And that's what all humans do. We match to the thing that will help us grow into our...
That's our attachment style.
Yes.
See?
Yes.
See, I took
notes.
notes.
Spend some time with the book.
So the way we're raised and the way that relationships are modeled for us inform our attachment style.
Yes.
And,
which is like our relationship style, essentially.
And why is it important to be aware of that?
So that you can understand that the shit you're doing and the shit your partner is doing isn't personal.
She does a lot
I'm
of shit.
sure she
My
does. Well,
God.
and boy, she's also a saint to be married to you. Let's be honest.
This is true.
It's true.
Yeah. I'm high risk, high reward.
It's
It's not always fun.
I'm the Meg Ryan character from When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
I'm high maintenance, but I think I'm low maintenance.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't really have any needs. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. Except I do have needs, and I'm going to pretend I don't.
Also dangerous.
My husband's like a walk in a minefield trying to provide things for me. He's a saint also. Anyway, so knowing the shit you do and the shit that your partner does is what is wired into you.
Mm-hmm.
It means that it's not personal. Like the fact that maybe
feels pretty personal though, doesn't it?
It does feel pretty personal, and that's the biological stuff that kicks off, the fight or flight stuff that kicks off. Because if, let's say, Stacy needs to walk out of the room when you're fighting because she needs to cool off, and you experienced being left, that would trigger an automatic response in you that she's leaving, she's abandoning you. Not on a conscious level. You're smarter than that. You know that. You're the smart part of your brain. That ego part of our brain knows. Chill out, man. But your emotional system is freaking out. Mm-hmm. So knowing that that's your attachment style, that that's just a biological reality for you, that she needs time away. You need comfort. Whatever maybe it's reversed. Knowing that isn't personal helps us go, okay, this is just the way she calms herself. And I can proactively attend to this. I can make sure she has lots of space I can look for the signs that she's getting overwhelmed in the relationship, and I can encourage space rather than waiting until that shit builds up and we have a big explosion.
Mm-hmm. Now, you also, you provide service to straight married couples.
Yes.
To gay couples.
Yes.
To polyamorous couples.
Yes.
What does polyamorous mean?
Polyamorous means many loves. So it's people that are not living the monogamous one person at one time.
Consensual non-monogamy.
Consensual non-monogamy.
Okay.
Also known as ethical non-monogamy, but that implies that there's unethical non-monogamy.
Well, isn't there non-ethical non-monogamy?
Well, that's just cheating.
That's what I mean. That's what it's...
Well, but that's not, like in a healthy polyamorous relationship, everybody's aware of what's going on.
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay, when I read polyamory, I read that at first as like thruples, like more than two. Have you engaged with more than two people in a relationship?
I have. I have worked with couples for whom there is a third person, but I have never worked with all three at the same time. Like I haven't had the three in the room. I work dyadically, so I work with two people at once.
Okay.
So I typically work with the identified couple who have a third person, or oftentimes, they each have a secondary partner, but their relationship they consider it primary.
And what kind of issues are they dealing with that you're not dealing with in a theoretically monogamous couple?
You're dealing with all the same relationships. You're just sometimes dealing with more at the same time. When it's two people is hard enough. It's complicated enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to deal with jealousy and hurt feelings and communication and
Boundaries.
all that sort of stuff with two people. You add in other complications, including children. Children make the relationship harder and more complicated. In-laws make it more complicated. Jobs, hobbies, friends that, your partner likes or doesn't like make it more complicated. So polyamory is a complication of the relationship, but like children, like jobs, like anything that makes us happy as individuals, it can deepen the relationship.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't
So when you
do
talk
it.
about
I don't
firing
have.
it up, Stacy should get a boyfriend. Is that what you're saying?
Well, considering who her husband is, maybe.
Yes. She could definitely find a better lover. That's for sure. I know that. The point wasn't to ask about, to be totally salacious there, but just to sort of say that every couple is completely different in the variables, emotional, psychological, that they bring to the table.
Yes. Yes.
And so how do you as a therapist try to get the lay of the land for a new couple that you're working with?
A lot of it is watching the couple, seeing the couple interact with each other. And so when a couple works with me, most of them find this annoying until they get used to it. They're facing each other rather than looking at me.
Yes.
And so I'm seeing how are they regulating each other? How are they triggering each other? How attuned are they? Are they paying attention to what's important? Or are they, up in their ego thinking about the content of the conversation, the data, the logistics, the facts, quote unquote, of the situation? Or are they listening for the meaning and the feelings beneath it? And so I'm watching and listening and seeing, and I will throw a rock into the pond and see how it ripples out. So I will ask a question that I know might provoke a response and see how they take care of each other in that.
How do you build trust with a new couple? Because you just said you're watching them. How do you watch them without making them feel judged? Because they're there for a reason,
yes,
right?
They're there for a reason. I use a lot of normalization like I do in that book where, hey, I'm not special just because I'm a relationship expert. Relationships are universally hard, and we are universally stupid in our relationships.
Why?
Well,
shouldn't this be natural?
That is the biggest error we make. It is natural, and we're just, we're play acting and acting out everything we've experienced in relationship. And you match up either with someone who's been through exactly the same shit, and then you have the same expectations and everyone's like competing to get their needs met. Yes, a lopsided table. Or you have two people who are different, who are triggering each other in very complementary but very challenging ways.
Right.
And human beings are we're a disaster of a species. We are so selfish. We are so self-destructive. We're the only species that categorizes, good, better, best. Mm-hmm. Whales aren't out there doing that.
Right.
Dogs aren't out, like us versus them. That's not really something that happens in other species.
Is that because the hierarchy is well established in other species? Or because we'd like to think that there's no hierarchy when there definitely is?
That's getting beyond my level of research on that particular, like in terms of I haven't studied other species.
You haven't studied hierarchies in the blue whales?
I have not. I just know that
of the North Atlantic. I thought I was getting an expert here. My God.
Polyamory in whales. Do you want to talk about that?
God,
because
that
let's go there.
That sounds totally hot.
Let's talk about polyamorous whale sex.
Hey, Mike. Will you check this mic in here? Oh, look, it's my wife.
Hi.
We're going to have some this is Carolyn.
Nice to
This is
meet
Stacy.
you.
Thank you so
This
much.
is a surprise.
Excellent. Am I doing a little session?
We're doing a little session today.
Oh my God.
Twilight
You're,
session surprise.
you're
Thank
ambushing
you.
me
Yes.
with, oh, excellent. I love it. Well, you got to set it up so they can face each other.
I can't do it. We can't do it.
You can't
Sorry,
you can't
no.
make eye contact?
We'll make eye contact like this as best we
Oh
can.
my God, this
But
is
I have-
amazing.
So, everybody, if you haven't figured it out yet, this is my wife, Stacy. We've been married for 17 years and a few months. We have 2 kids, 15 and 14 years old. Every day is bliss. I'm a great husband, and I really don't have much to improve on. But I thought, anyway, since my friend Carolyn's here and she's a relationship expert and I like free stuff, sorry, not free, zero marginal cost. None of this is free. Anyway, I thought we'd talk about. I thought what we'd talk about is, this was interesting, the purpose of our relationship and the values of our relationship.
Okay. Awesome.
Because as I was reading about that, I'm like, we sort of talk about our purpose and our values, but we never explicitly talk about them.
Yep.
Maybe you'll help us with that?
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
All right.
I love that.
Hi, honey.
So when you all read that part, what was your immediate thought about your own purpose? And talk to each other as you respond to me. Like, I know you're answering my question, but I want you, and I see if we were in session together, I would be sitting between the two of you so I could see your faces equally, so I could
And
cue
Right.
you.
here's the thing I wrote in all caps about purpose of relationships.
Okay.
Love is not enough.
Love is not enough.
God dang it, man.
Damn it.
So you.
Do you get why love is not enough though?
I'd love to hear you expound on that.
Do you get why love is not enough?
Yes. After all these years, I get it.
Exactly. Because you don't feel love constantly. And in the moments that our relationships are hardest, you definitely don't feel it.
Correct. Plus, I think in all the years you find out what somebody's love language is, right? And it doesn't always match your own. So you have to recognize when they're trying.
Yes. Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah, well, you are not just people who are in love. You're also roommates.
Yeah.
You're co-parents. You're managers of a financial entity that is your household. And we all have different assumptions about the way those things should be handled.
Well, certainly.
About me having to put not just the toilet seat down, but the toilet seat cover down. That's egregious.
It's just the way it needs to be done. I don't know what to tell you. You won the dishwasher. I win the toilet seat.
No, I haven't won the dishwasher. You've just let me do it.
That's right, because that's not winning. That's a win-win.
No, it's not a win-win. It's jujitsu. You're using my own anal retentiveness against me so
No,
that
I'm
I end
using
up doing it
It
all the
actually
dishes.
makes you feel good, I feel like.
It does. It
Yes,
does,
because you like to
actually.
do it your way, which
No,
is great.
because I'm creating order out of chaos, and that's good.
Great. I'll just go to our room.
See?
And watch.
Where did that come from?
I
come
don't think
on.
we have time for that, Paul.
Yeah, that is your whole MO,
Okay. Creating order out of chaos.
kind of.
See, I'm an agent for good in the world.
That's why you love the dog so much.
All right. So, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I do think it's interesting when you're talking about why love is not enough is young love is different as it matures. It becomes, you just realize, or I have realized, I should speak for myself, that like you come with all of this complexity of how you were raised or what you believe, or I'm an only child, he's one of 6, or all these different circumstances. And so it takes a long time to meld that together, and love is definitely what brought you together and part of it, but staying together and living together in a functional, healthy way. How you approach finances, how you approach the dishwasher, whatever that is, it takes a lot of compromise, and it just takes more than just, I love you so much, but you're an asshole. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's not going to work.
Absolutely.
All I heard was asshole.
No. I mean, you're definitely not at all.
There's
But
that
I'm just saying-
negativity bias at
Yeah,
He
which
is
keeps us
negative.
alive.
It does keep us
Negativity-
alive.
But no, not at all. You're wonderful. I'm just saying that is, it's something that's learned. I don't think it's innate to be like, I'm living with you for the rest of my life. And you just think they're going to do it just like you do.
Right.
And it's not how it goes.
Right. Right. A feeling, a felt experience isn't really enough of a purpose. It's like, maybe when you were young, you loved running.
That's true.
Now you don't love running so much as you love what running does for you. And the same is true in a relationship.
Right.
We fall in love and we do the work early on because of that feeling of love, and we're like sort of chasing it. But later it's about what that relationship does for us, what that purpose is.
I think with that too, I would say like it furthers love and in not the sexiest way maybe, but it is deep and it is enduring and it is very special.
Yeah.
So we're getting to our purpose. So examples of purpose would be?
To live a life of adventure.
We're doing
where
that.
we challenge each other to be our best selves.
I like it.
Adventure.
That's my purpose. You can't fucking take mine.
Oh, I can't
That's
take yours?
No, you can't.
Oh, geez.
Well,
I like yours.
think. What do you start with values or do you start with purpose?
That's a good question.
Like if
You can do it either way. I'm not going to be super
I would say-
dogmatic about it. For some couples, they want to speak from
And
their
I want to
values
ask
first.
you about empty nesters too, because I think
Yep.
that's a big thing,
All right.
especially when it comes to purpose. Because when you think of purpose, it's really easy to say to create a loving and safe home for our children. Okay, but that changes. You're shaking your head and saying no, and you wag your finger for a second.
I did. I wagged. Okay. I don't know if there's a camera. I don't know where
that's
it's.
your camera.
I discourage couples from making their relationship purpose about their children
Oh, I agree.
because
I agree.
you have to have something more that is about just the two of you, because the kids are
Children are
going
going to stab you in the back someday,
the kids are going to stab you in the back.
or at least leave. But that's and we're 5 years away from that, but we see a lot of our friends, our age group. That's what they're going through,
Yeah.
and it's a big adjustment.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've heard horror stories, but it's like
It's
it
a big
changes
change.
things. Yeah,
It
yeah.
does. Just like retirement changes things, a big job change, having your parents move in with you, whatever is going on in your. She told me beforehand that
Dad's
was
Dad's
coming.
moving in.
The thing is,
The
my
dad that really
he doesn't
likes
like
you.
New York
yeah, I'm
City.
like, he will never buy that. My father does not care for New York.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Okay, so purpose not based on children.
Yes.
Okay, so
You could create, it could be about creating family, that because that's broader than we create a safe place for our kids. You guys aren't really in there as individuals. You're in there as parents, which is a temporary role, versus Stacy the person,
Right.
of which parenting is one role, but your career, your hobbies, your friends, your family is another.
But growth, what you were saying is to help each other be their best. I think growth is something that came to mind to me, both for myself and to encourage her personal growth and flourishing came to mind. Safety, safety, I think is a big one for me, even if the kids aren't included. But I mean, it's kind of hard not to think about them. To have a safe environment at home.
I think, I don't know how to articulate it except for the,
Watch your hand in the mic.
I'm sorry,
here.
sweetie. Except for Paul told me I was away, actually almost to the month last year. I did the Hoffman process, and I loved it very much. But there's no phones, TV for a week. And Paul, when I came home, Paul said, it's just so interesting how many times I wanted to text you, call you, just tell you day to day, this is what's happening, big, little, or whatever. And it just wasn't going to serve any purpose because you didn't have your phone. Whatever that means is part of it, right? Someone to share everything with, the minutia, but also which is fun. It like keeps us together. It's like the funny quips or this or whatever. It's like you're sharing a shared but different path kind of, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's very
safe.
It's
It is
the
safe.
day-to-day stuff that you realize if somebody. I think it says something about technology too, not just about. But it's like 90% of the stuff I went to text her was about the weather or some phase of my digestion.
That's
I'll
hot.
leave it at that.
That's hot.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I was
But
very
it's like
sexy
when
when
you
I got
start
all
to
the
go,
texts.
oh my God, I'm like, whatever.
I'm so bloated.
And it goes both ways,
Right.
by the way. It goes both ways.
What are you
I'm
talking
so
about?
gassy.
Well, that would be one of them. And you go, oh, that's sort of what you share on text. Maybe that text doesn't have to be sent. You know,
Right,
first
right,
of all, and then maybe.
But there's a bondingness about that you've been with someone or you know somebody or like that is, it's not a shared experience, but it's a shared life. And it's just adds a layer of like, oh, we've been together, like we're comfortable with each other.
Oh,
but not too
now
comfortable.
no, next time you go, I'm going to be like, I wish you were here watching Below Deck.
Okay, believe me that the toilet seats still have to be down and there is still some
seats are
mystery in our world. Like you use the upstairs bathroom. So like
That's
I
the
don't want to
shitter.
get
That's
yeah.
the shitter.
I mean,
That's the shitter.
Okay, so the purpose, we've heard safety and growth. Those are pretty good. Love is not
And
enough.
companionship, like deep
Companionship.
connection and
Okay.
companionship.
Yeah.
what I find interesting, and I hope this is okay, but like we're both pretty independent people in terms of we could hang by ourselves.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I think me being gone 2 weekends a month or like is healthy
Great.
for both of us.
For sure.
Because it gives us a little time on our own and an opportunity to be appreciative when we come home.
Yep.
Believe me, comedy condos are not the most romantic places in the world. And after you, and I'm,
I don't have
I'm,
that
I'm
pleasure.
grateful to have. I'm grateful to have a place to stay when I'm on the road. If I get the work, and I'm grateful to go and do the work, and I'm grateful to leave and come home to to our very nice home that I'm always happy to come back to. Which the creation of that home and having a home that you want to come back to is, I guess, a very good thing to be grateful for.
And you got to, I mean, we weren't friends before we dated. I know a lot of people start that way and it seems to work
We
well.
were not friends before.
That's what I said.
Oh,
we were
okay.
not. But I do think we have a good base value system for friendship. However, that evolved for us. So there's a lot of, we didn't grow up the same at all, really.
We both like wine and pickleball
Well, you like,
and really nice stuff.
but I do think that there is like a, you know, a kinship, whatever. I believe in more intuitive, funky things than he does about it, but
I do not believe in supernatural things.
yeah, I do.
What do you call it? The saging. She sages the house, and I just go, "Oh, okay, good
Well,
for
that's
you."
good.
Yeah. There
And
go.
you probably do shit that she's like, okay. You know, it's maybe that's the
Yeah.
cleansing, the cleaning things that you do. And
Yes.
that's the beauty of two different people being together is that you add to each other's lives.
Okay, so what are the values? So did we cover values there? Because we were talking about purpose, but
Yeah,
so
the
values
purpose
and
is
purpose
your-
sort of leak into values, right?
They do sort of. I mean, your purpose is the why that you are together. Like the what is the purpose of this relationship, and the values are the you know, I mean, the guiding principles. The you know, I mean, how do you describe values without saying values?
Right.
You know, the integrity with which, you know, is it honesty? Is it
Oh, yeah.
connection?
Yeah.
Is it playfulness?
Trust.
Trust.
Trust, adventure, growth. I know we've said some of these before.
I think trust is a
Our-
big part of it.
Oh,
I mean, for me, for sure.
100%. And adventure, you know, this move to New York is pure adventure because makes no sense whatsoever.
I love adventure. I love
It's
nonsense.
amazing.
I love making no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and your values are what inform your choices and what your choices tell you about what your values are actually, right? Because it's like people say we value, you know, giving to our community, but if you look at their year-end budget or whatever, they've
Right.
given not a dime.
Right.
Not sure that's actually your values, and so it's a check and balance to your relationship. It's all right. We you know, honesty is really important to us. How do you behave in a way that informs that says that that's true? Are you honest? Is that something that you enact? Are you transparent? What do you do that shows trust in your relationship?
Oh, you mentioned something in the book and I'm not going to try to get out of this, but I think maybe you can help weave it back in, about radical acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about radical acceptance for
Okay.
a second.
Okay.
That sounds scary to me.
It is. It's so scary.
Does that mean I have to give up on what I believe?
No. It is accepting. I mean, it's sort of accepting the unacceptable. So, it is what it is sort of a version of radical acceptance. A cancer diagnosis. You can't fight it. And there's a lot of resisting that goes on in relationship where we're trying to change our partner into doing things the way we do. And couples waste a whole lot of time doing this.
It's like you trying to tell me directions.
Or you telling him how to do the dishes.
I just want you to make it home. That's all.
So it's
okay, but aren't there things that are not acceptable?
For sure, there are things that are unacceptable.
We're not in a polyamorous relationship,
Right.
as far as I know.
Right, and that comes to
and that would be outside the bounds of acceptability.
and that comes to your agreements in your relationship. We're monogamous. We agree that we don't
Is that a
see other
value
people.
or a rule?
That's an agreement. It's a rule. That sounds very authoritative, like it's.
It's okay to be authoritative.
It
when
is.
comes
It
to
is. If
rules.
you want to, if you want to, agreement to me sounds more collaborative than rule, and
Okay,
it's a
sure,
semantic
agreement.
thing.
Okay, is
so
that the
we
difference,
make a,
really?
But an agreement is that
the two of you bring like an understand. For me, what I teach is that for an agreement to work, you have to understand why it's important to each of you and to your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It has to work for both of you to a certain extent, either doing the agreement or the end result of the agreement. So that's why you have to know, why is this important to her and to our relationship in order for me to do it.
So we would have to talk about monogamy and why it's an important value.
I recommend it because couples often have implicit agreements. They think they've made agreements, but they've never actually talked about it. And then they step outside of the agreement. I mean, monogamy is a pretty egregious version, but we tell each other everything as a common, or we don't go to bed mad. And if you don't know the why behind that,
true.
I know. Well, for some people it's really
yeah.
important, and for other people it's actually a bad agreement.
Right.
Because some people take longer to process things.
That's right.
But if you don't know the why behind the agreement of I call to let her know I'm going to be late. If you don't know why that's important to her, you're not going to retain it in the same way. If you know she gets scared, she gets really alarmed if I'm late and I'm walking home late at night from a club in New York City, and I get really alarmed, she gets really alarmed, it's easy for you to remember to call. And so that's why knowing the why grounds the agreement in your values, in the purpose of your relationship, and in each other.
Well, it sounds like respect for the other person to me.
It is. It is. Yeah.
What are the things? What's the hardest thing for you to accept about me?
Well, and to come back to that, in radical accepting, you're accepting the person for who they are.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're accepting every annoying little behavior,
Sure.
right? That you're accepting that he needs things clean. The kitchen being the
He
way
does not need things clean.
Okay, so I'm
I don't need things clean?
doing the dishes a certain way. Did I miss?
Yes, that's just That's just that one little compartment of the dishwasher.
But you don't think I'm a clean person.
You have stuff everywhere.
There's neat, and then there's clean.
That's true.
Yeah, there's two different. Anyway,
Let me think of something annoying about you.
There's many things, I know.
understanding that he likes to do the dishes in a certain way, it can be annoying, but you understand why that's important to you, and so you accept that about you. Don't like it, but you accept it. This isn't the same as accepting that, she screams at you and calls you names. I'm making something up.
Very
She would
rarely.
never do that.
Very rarely.
She would never do
Very
that.
rarely does she do that.
You don't accept those things because that's harmful to the relationship. It's not the same as condoning bad behavior, but it's understanding, all right, when Stacy gets upset enough or scared enough, she will lose her connection to what she believes is right and what she wants to do and all that sort of stuff. And when she really loses her shit, that happens. It doesn't mean she means to do it. It's just an expression of how scared she got or how upset she got.
Right.
And it helps you accept that she's doing her best.
All right, I want to bring this back to the context of the book, Fired Up, by my guest, Carolyn Sharp. Because there were 3 elements to firing it up.
Yes.
Right? And they pertain to this, and I want to make sure you have the opportunity before we're done in 10 minutes here to talk about oxygen, fuel, and ignition.
Yes.
And when you say fired up, you don't just mean get out the lingerie and the toys. You mean how to create a more vibrant, healthy relationship with
Well-rounded
warmth
relationship.
and light.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So oxygen. We talked about acceptance as being
Oxygen is acceptance. Oxygen is also, you guys touched on this earlier, is the right amount of time together and time apart. The space to be your individual selves, because you can't have a healthy relationship without 2 healthy individuals.
Right.
And
Lots
if
of
you're
people.
going to downsize by 50% from Atlanta to New York, I'm just,
2 bathrooms to 1.
yeah.
Ooh,
Bathroom space is
really?
Actually went okay. I thought it would be a
Wow.
really big deal, actually.
I don't know that I could do that at this point in my life.
Yeah, it was big. Okay, acceptance.
Acceptance. So the acceptance, which is really based on understanding that stuff that we were talking about before you came in about who this person is and why they behave the way they are. That is what informs acceptance, is deep understanding of each other. That he's a crazy bastard because of all these experiences he's had.
Just the crazy number of people I had in my house growing up.
There you go. So that's oxygen. Fuel is that safety.
Oh, you said reciprocity also.
Yes, that's part of fuel.
Oh, that's part of fuel.
That is part of
sorry,
fuel.
I had it under oxygen.
So that's the safety to be yourselves, which is based in the communication you need to take care of each other, the accountability to be yourself, to own your stuff and to sort of be an imperfect person, and then that reciprocity and fairness of sort of creating justice and fairness in your relationship where you're each doing your part. So the fuel is the work we do to take care of our relationship through healthy communication. That's the least sexy part of it.
The fuel is.
Yeah, but if you're doing it well, it's actually really, it starts to feed all of that and you start to get why this works. I have couples, there's a listening exercise in the back that almost everybody describes as a game changer, that once they start doing it, it's a little awkward at first because you're like a little robotic of taking turns listening and all that sort of stuff. But once they start doing it, they're like, oh my God, this cuts out the fighting by so much. And it makes the conversation so much more efficient. Elon Musk would really love the listening exercise. So efficient. So that's the fuel. And then ignition is the spark, the play, the fun, the romance that separates your relationship from every other relationship you guys are in with colleagues and friends and family members and all that sort of stuff.
My relationship with Stacy is very different than my relationship with Big Mike, the producer here.
That's good to
Glad
know.
to hear that.
Yeah,
It's very different.
yeah.
I love him, but it's a different
It's
kind
a
of love.
different kind of love.
I do think you just touched on safety again, and I do think maybe it's just personal, but that is a thing. Like
Safety.
I like. I didn't really think about it that much before, but I mean, you are a safe haven. I kind of like that. I don't know what Freudian thing that means or whatever that is, but like, he's kind of a safe haven.
Well, you guys have created that.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing the work to make that
It
so.
took me a long time to think that. I
doesn't-
think not. It has nothing to do with him, actually. Just I think my makeup is not to think that, but he definitely is.
Well, that's good.
But you can't take it for
I'll take
granted,
that.
and that's the mistake so many couples make of taking something like that for granted.
Yeah, no, I
in
don't
terms
think-
of
yeah.
what it needs to stay a safe place.
Right. Right.
How do things go south in safety?
Unkindness, lack of repair is a big one, where
Lack of
it's repair. So it's not the mistakes we make where you're kind of short with each other or unkind or, anything like that. It's the absence of repairing for that, of owning your crap
I'm
and
sorry.
saying, yeah, I'm sorry. I was a real jerk earlier to you. I didn't mean to talk to you like that. I forgot to bring home the lemons, and you asked me 3 times to bring home the lemons. The Vince Vaughn, Jennifer Aniston quote that I will not, or reference that I will not stop making.
I don't remember that. What was
It's
it?
from The Breakup.
I was going to say it's
I
from the
remember
breakup.
movie,
It's
but
got to
what
be
was
because
the
they were in
quote?
the same
What was
movie.
the quote?
Loved it.
Well, she asked him to bring, it was the thing that led to them breaking up. She asked him to bring home 12 lemons
Yeah.
for a centerpiece, and he brought home 3 lemons, and they had a huge fight over what the fuck am I supposed to do with 3 lemons? And he's like, what the, Anyway, put it over some lemon, put it over the
Right.
chicken, your dry chicken. And anyway, it escalated and escalated and escalated and escalated, as it does when we don't get, because the lemons aren't the lemons. The toilet isn't the toilet. The dishes aren't the dishes. It's about feeling listened to. It's about feeling heard and understood and taken care of, and that what you're asking for matters to your partner.
Yeah.
You know, that's what the toilet usually means is I've asked you 10 times and you won't put the toilet seat down. Clearly you don't care about me. That's what our dumb, like our emotion center does with that. When we've asked our partner to do something 10 times and they don't do it, we translate our emotion center, our little kid in us translates that to, I don't matter.
And we all have those scripts that we then forge or mold all of the examples that fit that script into it, that just reinforces she doesn't care, she doesn't like my mom, she's too busy or whatever.
Right, because our brain is continually trying to make things easier for us, so we automate everything. So I don't have to ask you what 1 + 1 is because you've automated the answer to that, hopefully. It's 2, Paul.
Thank you.
And we automate each other. So if you say you're going to be home at 5 o'clock, she automates that it's actually going to be 5:15. Like she's not even she doesn't even have to think about
Reasonable
it.
expectations.
Reasonable expectations.
It's communication.
Yeah. Yeah, but
100%.
the more times we do things over and over again, like if you repeat, I say 5 and it's 5:15, it goes into procedural memory where we no longer have to think about it. It's just the expectation that he's
Like
going to
me.
actually be home
That'd be me.
at 5:15.
5:15.
Or if you start to, unload the dishwasher or load the dishwasher, he's going to get cranky in 30 seconds. So you just step away. Yes. That's why I use that example. We automate each other. And that's how it becomes unsafe. We don't repair for it and clean it up so that we continually, I can tell him about my job. He's not going to get mad at me about it or whatever it is.
All right, we just have a few more minutes left.
Okay.
I want to talk about empty nesting.
Okay.
So as I said before,
I'm a
this
new
is
empty nester.
Are you?
are?
Yes.
So why is it such a challenge? And it's an inflection point in a relationship. It removes some things that were obviously what we were coalesced behind for 18 years. How would you recommend that couples prepare for it and then sort of execute on it in the healthiest way possible?
It's a massive identity change for anybody. It's also a
Because I'm not dad anymore.
You're not dad anymore in the
I don't
same
know my
way.
purpose in the same way.
And there's grief and loss behind it because, you've lost a part of your routine. You've lost these children that used to be in your home all the time. You've lost the sort of family unit in the same way. So there's a lot behind why it's a challenge. So what to do to prepare for it? Talk about it. I mean, that's
What a talk.
Like, in what context are we talking about it? Like the pain that we're going to experience and what we're going to do when they're gone, or all of it?
All of it. Really? All of it. I mean, it's a great, anytime we go through a significant life change, a life transition, I recommend couples sort of checking in about their purpose, checking in about their goals for their relationship to see, does this still fit or do we need to create something new because your life is changing? I mean, even, your kids go from diapers, my husband called that baby jail, when you were dependent on diapers and naps and all that sort of stuff. That's baby jail. And then you graduate from baby jail and you're in school time, and then each of those is very different for couples in terms of how intense that experience is and the focus is. So there's an opportunity to reflect and decide, what are we going to do next? So talk about that. That's the fun part of goal setting, and not being, you don't need babysitters. You're not dependent on any you're not carpooling to swim practice. Oh my God, I was so happy when that ended.
And so your daughter has gone off to college.
She's a sophomore in college, and our Jeff's youngest son, I consider them all mine, but he's a freshman at Drexel in Philly.
Okay.
So now we use that time to move across the country from Seattle to north of Boston. So,
Wow.
Empty nest.
So then, if you find yourself as a couple having trouble in empty nesting, it's time to revisit the chalkboard and restate your values and purpose.
I think if you are doing the work that I recommend in the book, you're going to have a natural process.
Fired up by Carolyn Sharp. Available at bookshop.org.
Everywhere
and
books are
Amazon.
sold.
If you're a capitalist pig,
Yes.
you can buy it on Amazon. But sorry, finish your thought.
Support the oligarchs. Support the oligarchs. If you're doing all of that work, you're going to naturally pick up on, ooh, shit feels funky right now. And you're going to reflect on, what is this about? Is this about that the kids are left? How you doing? You're going to be taking care of each other and checking in. How you doing about our kids being gone? How are you feeling about, I mean, ideally you're talking about this prior to it happening of, kid gets accepted to their dream college and there's lots of celebration and yet you feel dread. And you're like, oh, I don't feel so good about this. Is this fear? Is this sadness? Is this, what's going on? Yeah. Tell me about it. Let me be that safe place for you to share all the feelings you don't feel are okay to say out loud over the dinner table to Junior, because Junior's over the moon about wherever.
Right.
West Point.
Rhodes College. You were going to say something?
It's so interesting to me because I understand theoretically all of that, but on a day-to-day, I will check in. Let's say we're talking about it, and then the kids are gone, and still, what do you do? In the day, when you're I think that grief is where the grief probably comes in. What are you I'm looking now for things that I love to do because when they're gone, I just feel for the parent who they're off to college, and then it's literally. I mean, you can empathize with your partner, whatever, but on a day-to-day basis, you're not doing lunch and you're not doing dinner, and you're not doing carpool, and it's kind of at that age too, what are we going to do? I think you see a lot of women coming into their own later in life because of that. But that's another big relationship thing to be okay, so I'm grieving this, whatever, but I think I'm going to start my own business or do something else. Do you find that as part of it? Or
absolutely. I mean, there's
all of it is
all of it is part of it. I mean, for some people, all of it is part of it. It depends on how your life was before and obviously what it's going to be afterwards. That is certainly part of it for people, and sometimes it's mothers that have the most intense loss experience because that defining characteristic is so impactful. Sometimes it's dads.
Yeah.
If it's a stay-at-home dad or it's just a dad who is really attached to his role as dad. So it's really being open and creating this safe space for each of you to have your experience and really understand what your experience is, because it may catch somebody by surprise.
Okay.
They might not realize that they were going to grieve this bad. Or they may feel really relieved, and then they feel guilty about feeling relieved. Does this mean I didn't love the kids, that I'm super fucking psyched that they're in college? Does this mean I don't love it? I feel kind of bad saying this.
That is such a good point. You're right.
You want to make it safe. And I do this with couples that are about to be parents. I say, and I sometimes call myself the doom cloud of relationships because I'm always relationships are hard. This is bad. This is difficult. People are annoying. But to parents who are to couples who are about to be parents, to say, do not be alarmed the first time you have the impulse to harm your child. It is completely normal. And they're all like, are you a sociopath therapist? I'm like, no, trust me. And then they always come back and they're like, I had it. I had it. I mean, I remember my daughter was newborn, 2 weeks old. It was broiling hot. I mean, I know you guys are from Atlanta, so what am I talking about in Seattle? But it was hot, and I was she would not sleep, and I'm holding her, and I walked by the window, and I imagined throwing her out the window.
Holy shit.
Imagined it. I didn't want to, but then I hugged her tighter and walked away from the window and sat in the rocking chair, and it's just we're animals, and parenting is very difficult. The same thing is true of relationships. If people don't have the impulse to leave their partner at some point, slam the door, walk and live in a cabin in the woods, I don't think they're necessarily being honest with themselves. Relationships are hard. So anyway.
That's a great place to wind it up.
Carolyn's a sociopath.
Carolyn's a little bit of a sociopath. She only thought about throwing her baby out a window. She didn't really do it. So.
I didn't really do it.
Stacy Ollinger, thank you for joining us.
Thank
this
you.
was a treat.
Thank you.
Carolyn
what a fun
Sharp,
surprise.
So
delightful to be in touch, and you're close now, so we've seen each other twice in 3 months.
I know.
Y'all check out Carolyn's book, Fire It Up. 4 secrets to reigniting intimacy and joy in your relationship. Doesn't have to involve lingerie or sex toys. Some really good stuff
But it
in
can.
here. It can. Doesn't not have to either.
Exactly.
Anyway, we'll see you next time.